Hey guys, welcome to another session of Yes Plus Corner with Drone and Nikhil here. You guys all know Nikhil? Nikhil is one of our star Yes Plus teachers in Albany, New York. Nikhil, you want to say hi to everybody? Nikhil, are you there?
Hi everyone. Hey Gurudev. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. I see so many people are here. And all of us are going to Boone, right? Are you all excited? Guruji is there in the US tomorrow. Like that's really like tomorrow.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
So we have another member of our amazing Yes Plus team. Her name is Annalise Richmond. Most of you know her before you even knew me.
Hi.
Annalise, say hi.
Jacob. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
And all of us are going to Boone, right? Are you all excited? Guruji is there in the US tomorrow. Like that's really like tomorrow. Woohoo! Woohoo!
Oh, I think that's a repeat.
Have another member of our amazing Yes Plus team. Yeah, that is a repeat. Where is that coming from? Man, all the technical issues we have to deal with.
Hi. Jacob.
Okay, awesome. So Annalise, we have a very special guest today that will join soon. I'm sure you all know him. He is charismatic, youthful, spontaneous, playful, loving, extremely happy, and even more extremely wise. Full of stories and wit and humor, Philip Fraser is a gem among gems. It will be an honor to have him with us soon. While we wait for him, maybe we can have a conversation.
Well, it's my belief that Philip is secretly enlightened. He just doesn't let anybody know it. So he's the perfect person to talk about enlightenment. Because when the first time I did a silence course with him, I was pretty convinced that this guy's enlightened. And nothing else has ever changed my resolution since. So for those of you who haven't met him, you're in for a real treat, and he's really funny. But you could get some amazing stories out of him about Sri Sri, about Guruji. So do send in your questions to Drone or any kind of like ways you're going to get stories out of him, because that will get the most out of Philip.
Absolutely. So there are questions on the side. Great. So you guys can, I can see that Mary Walker has posted some things on the question box. So great. That's good to know that everybody can see the video and also post questions on the side. Awesome.
Mary's there, great. Is Philip joining?
He should be joining. So we have technical difficulties with his account. So he should be joining very soon. Great. That's good to know that everybody can see the video.
Does everybody know how to ask questions on the side in the chat box?
Awesome.
There's a little app you can download to ask questions.
Take a few moments. Take a few moments just to set that up so that you can ask questions. Maybe even throw in a few questions so we know that you have it on and have the ability to ask questions.
Is everybody who's on the call coming to Boone, North Carolina? to hang
Yeah.
out with Sri Sri.
Yes.
July 8th to 13th. He'll be there, and Philip will be there. So this is one of the secrets to enlightenment. It's that you don't say anything, and when you're there, you're invisible. That's what Philip is doing. This is the secret to enlightenment. Well,
So Annalise, what's your favorite part of about Guru Purnima? Why do you go every year?
to Guru Purnima?
Yes.
Well, it's like the highest energy day of the year. You feel like I don't know, like the planets are all in like perfect alignment or something. You can meditate super deeply. It's the best day to be around Guruji. It's like he's kind of like on another planet on that day, and you kind of tune into that energy. It's very celestial, ethereal. It's like you're floating around. You kind of feel like you're not in your body, but you're also in your body, so you're like really happy. And also on that day, I notice whatever intentions you make, like you make a prayer or an intention or something new you want to start for your life, it comes true. It has like a lot of shakti or energy behind it. So that's really something really magical about that day. And the celebration with Guruji, it's like out of this world. Like I don't know why he always comes to the USA on that day. We're so lucky. Like I would think he'd want to be in India, but he always comes to the USA, and the celebration is like it's crazy. It feels like you could just float up to the ceiling at that point during the celebration. And also Guruji gives people so much personal time on that day. He like meets with each person one by one. I remember last year I was just incredulously watching him because he stood there on the stage for 7 hours straight, meeting people one by one by one by one, any question they wanted to ask or they wanted a hug. And he never even took a sip of water, and he never left to go to the bathroom or eat. So I don't know how he did it, but he did it for like 7 hours. And there were people like Nikhil who kept getting back into the line and going a second and third time. And Guruji even tolerated it. He wasn't like, I already met you. He's like, oh, I already met you. And then like, he still talked to them.
First time he said that.
So it's such a special day. It's the day of the teacher and the day of the student or disciple. Yes. Oh, somebody else is appearing.
Making an effort to appear. Appearing and disappearing. He is here and he is nowhere.
That's Philip for you.
No, I don't know why that's happening.
Well, we might have to postpone this till tomorrow night. He can't join, huh? What do you think?
There's some technical difficulties.
How many people are on the call or the hangout?
There are 22 viewers.
Hmm. Philip is just trying to build up our anticipation. That's what it is. This is a doctor's technique, like they never let you in the doctor's office right away so that you really appreciate seeing the doctor once you get in. That's what Philip is doing.
I heard him.
Hmm.
Oh, Kasha did
Ah,
it.
hello.
Okay, I did it. Wow.
Wow!
Woohoo!
Now Kasha's gonna try and join. She didn't know I
Okay.
just did this. Now she's
Okay.
there. Hi.
Ah, Kasha!
Okay.
Yay!
Oh my goodness. They're
Okay, we
really
did
sensitive
it.
with that
Okay.
ejection thing. It
So
looks
I'm
like.
gonna go, guys, because we are driving now. Okay.
That's great. Just leave our call, why don't you? Hi everyone.
Hi, Philip!
Jay Gurdev. I'm a little kid's room here, so they have bright colors. Yay. Ta-da. Okay. So
Wow.
that's so funny. We totally tried everything, set it up perfectly, and then we just did the eject mode, which never do. That's a new lesson. So now I'm Akasha Fraser, in case anyone's wondering. Okay, so are we all on? I'm sure everyone's on who's going to be on. So,
Yes, welcome, Philip.
hey, Joan, where are you? It looks very like a big hall there behind you.
I am in the lobby of my apartment building.
Okay, okay. I thought that's a big house.
Actually, that's the window and it's a reflection, but
Okay, okay.
go with that.
Perfect. Okay, so let's go. Let's find out what is the mystery of enlightenment.
So, Philip, what are the kind of perspectives or insights you've gained into enlightenment from being around Guruji for all these years?
Okay. One is that Guruji's enlightened. I swear by it, I mean, by my limited perspective. And number two is everyone else is very close.
Wow.
No, it's a funny term, actually. The minute you say enlightenment, people throw the term around quite a bit, and then no one gives much of a definition to it. So it's interesting because they just say, yeah, enlightenment. Okay, you are, you're not, it is, that isn't. One can, there's like a lot of notions about it. But so that's one thing that you notice floats around. It just becomes a term without much of a definition. Or someone they have their own internal idea about it, maybe a behavioral idea, like, oh, someone behaves this way, they're always smiling, or they have some siddhis, like, so all those kind of things. So that's one thing I've noticed over the years, and what's interesting to note, I mean, I guess from what I can piece together from watching Guruji and then seeing, different things on my own spiritual path, I guess you could say. So this is my deduction, how I would define enlightenment. When all the impressions have come, they're gone. You've let go of all the impressions which you hold on to in your mind. So that's, I think, where Guruji's at. I mean, don't quote me. Hopefully this is not going anywhere beyond the call. But that's one thing. So we generally think of it as an experience. So I'm experiencing the universe as all one, or I've realized I'm not just this material body, I'm spirit. Look, everyone who's meditating must have realized that because they're interested. Anyone who comes to an event or wants to go see Guruji has had the experience of that something that that they see in him. Otherwise, they wouldn't see it. So the mere fact that anyone's showing up means they know they have an interest, so there's some connection on that level. The difference between that's an experience. So somewhere in their history, maybe this lifetime, maybe another one, there's been that experience. It has to have been there, I would say, that enlightened moment or that enlightened state. But then the impressions are there and they take over. So you say, oh my God, what about this? I'm good at this. I'm no good. I want to do these things. I'm, all those things which we identify ourselves with. So as, there's moments in all of our life where that isn't dominating, but the real essence of our existence dominates, and then you say, oh, this is, then we call that an experience, of self or an experience of present moment or, all those things. So, is this making sense to anyone out there? So it's interesting. So the main points are this: is one, it's not experience-based. An enlightened state is a state where the impressions we're not identifying with them anymore. They may exist. We obviously all have our history and our memory and our karmas and all that stuff. We no longer say, I am that. I am only that. So those things come to rest. Even in your own lifetime right now, you've experienced things that you've been attached to, things that you struggle with, and then you said, okay, enough. I'm moving on now. So that process is constantly going on. And there was an instance once, there was a particular guru, he had a whole, well, I can even say the name, it doesn't really matter, but maybe I shouldn't. Whatever. Kripalu, right? So this guru had the Kripalu Center, and there was some drama that went on. It was kind of a specific thing about non-truthfulness or something that went on, and his devotees all kicked him out. And so now it's the Kripalu Center and not Amrita Sai. Amrita Sai was the guy running Kripalu Center. But anyway, he had come to meet Guruji there in India, and it had been a big kind of scandal. It was in Yoga Journal and all this stuff. And, Guruji said, no, he's very good, he's very good. He's done a lot of seva. He was kind of really praising him. And he said it's a long time before all the impressions go, and before. So it kind of implied, look, there was some attachment, there was some impression, and it came up, and then, it created some drama, but it didn't he didn't disregard the fact of, this person is quite complete, but yet there is an impression there. So that was, anyway, so those are some things I've come up with, over the years about what we term, what we mean when we say, enlightened, or so-and-so's enlightened, or all these things. But really the most interesting thing that I find in people is they think it means a behavior. If enlightenment was determined by a behavior, then your enlightenment's no bigger than that behavior. Okay, someone who never has sex, or someone who is only truthful, or someone who is, you name it, X number of things. Then, so say they did, so they did say something untruthful, or they did have sex, or they did, then what kind of enlightenment is that? It's nothing. It's just like some small definition. So that state of consciousness is beyond any behavior. And according to the time, place, people, circumstances, all different kind of behaviors come out of people, So it's, anyway, it's a kind of a very, anyway, that's as far as I get, other than, the little quotes you hear Guruji talk about, enlightenment's like a joke. It's like the fish searching for the ocean, And one day he very sincerely said, he looked at all of us and he said, you and me are the same. I'm just playing this role, you're playing that role. So you can get into a lot of, it gets interesting. But anyway, those are the things that I've noticed. And then, okay, here's one more to throw at you, just for the fun of it. If your definition of enlightenment is someone who sees everything as themselves, right? That could be one. There's Advaita state. So it's, oh my God, it's all one. There's no separation. Everything is myself. So therefore, by that definition, either no one's enlightened or everyone's enlightened. Because if the enlightened person sees everyone as himself, it means everyone is the same as that enlightened person, therefore enlightened. Whoa. Yay. Okay, so what's the next question before I get myself into further trouble.
Oh my God, I have to take some time to comprehend what was
I
just
know.
spoken.
I just threw a lot
I,
into the pot all at once. But okay, the main thing, just take away this one thing. What do you mean by enlightenment? It's for each person to ask themselves that very question. And some people say, I don't care, or who knows. But that in itself is a process. And then you'll come up with something and you'll say, yeah, okay, then. And you question it. Gurdjieff has another interesting talk where he says, some priest was talking to him in the airport and said, how could Krishna be enlightened? He stole butter, How could, everyone has these ideas, oh, so and so, they were married, they flirted around with women, something, this thing, that thing. They'll have some such idea, but if you look in history, all different kinds, historically, all people of different backgrounds, behaviors, different lifestyles were living and considered at the highest state of, enlightenment. So those are your things to wonder about. That's your homework. So, what else? And now, I'm changing my lighting. That's good. Okay. So, what should we talk about?
So, I have a question. So, how is enlightenment different than meeting the divine or merging with the divine? Is it different?
No, it's pretty much, I would say, same. You'll get some references like, they'll use terms like so-and-so got liberated, right? That's one thing. So that comes back to this idea of impressions. What binds us? You're not in jail, most of us, so where was your liberation? It was from these ideas or concepts that you find out and you think, oh, I am this, I am that. And sometimes people refer to that as egos. So then you dissolve the ego and therefore you're enlightened, or you get liberation from your impressions. All said and done, when that when you feel that kind of freedom, what's left? What's the thing that remains is what we call divine. So, Gurdjieff said Guru, God, Self, it's all one entity, in a different perspective, I guess you could say. So I would say, yeah, it's kind of, now all of this chatter that you can put into words is a little odd, like people say you are love. What does that mean, or you are joy, all these things. But if this is my only lame, kind of best analogy I can think of, if you go to Niagara Falls and you stand next to the falls, you would need a raincoat, because why? Because this mist is coming and it hits you, and what is that? It's water. You could, by definition, you call it water, But if you were to, that's water, but also standing under the falls is water, right? They're both water, but it's two entirely different entities at the same time. So you could say what we call love as an emotion is love, And then when people go meet, they come to their own experience of consciousness or the self or something, and they realize, oh my God, this is completely one. It's connected with everything. There's no separation between myself and any other thing. And then the only closest word you can put onto it is love, right? Because, or you could say love is like that mist, what we call love as an experience. But what that experience of the self is like standing under the falls, something like that. So I don't know. That's my only best attempt to kind of, anyway, difficult, incomprehensible topics. Here's one more for you. Okay, if you go to the ocean with a cup and dip it into the ocean, what do you have? We have a cup of water from the ocean, but can that cup describe the ocean? Right? It cannot. Ocean is so vast, it's like that vessel isn't capable, So pretty much what we call mind, intellect, logic is like the cup. It's not, it's limited, it's limited in its abilities, very useful abilities, but limited to describe the consciousness, the self. And that's why you'll always find that at some point you can't, people, you know, the most valuable things in people's lives, they can't seem to put into words. The things that come close to that, you can't define by the linear language, speaking, you know, all that stuff. Even what we term, this is very interesting, I don't know if you'll find it interesting, but experience, once you said I had the experience of the present moment, it's not the present moment. It's already become an experience, because what your mind can say, oh, this is happening, happens through senses, through the process of all this stuff. And this happened to me literally once. I mean, and this was one of your questions that we talked about earlier, is, okay, different things that made me realize, oh, this is, how did you phrase the question, what on the path made me realize Guruji's the one, or something like that. Anyway, there was a particular thing that happened, and I just had a 4-minute conversation with him, and then what happened? Then I went out of the room, and he said very direct, powerful things, you know, in the conversation. And then someone was there, and they said, well, what did he say? And I said, he was saying da-da-da, you know, just kind of trying to remember. And this was a person, I don't know, they kind of do energy work, massage therapy, something. So they said, oh, it feels like you're holding something, and they put their hand right on my chest. And then I just started crying and crying for about 45 minutes. And this was my second meeting with Guruji. And really in my mind I had no idea what was this emotion, why was I crying. But along with that was this experience of kind of dissolving, just feeling like getting smaller, 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 like this, not physically shrinking, I don't know why I would call it that, but, and then there was this feeling like the mere idea that I exist is an embarrassment to this creation. That was like the thing. And then it kind of went into this Advaita experience for about 2 or 3 days, like literally, just like anything you look at, you say, this is myself, this is connected. In words, it's fairly flimsy to try and describe, but anyway, for me, that's my reason for meditating, my reason on the path in the first place, because that had come earlier when I was quite younger. And so then it kind of faded off, and I was waiting to meet Guruji, you know, just waiting, because I just thought, oh my God, this guy is no joke. You know, how can I be around him, you know, all the time and all that stuff? And then I finally, a month or 2 later, I guess it was a couple of months, I get to the room, and I'm sitting there with Guruji, and I said, Guruji, this experience, and I started to explain, and he said, drop it, you know. And I was really kind of stunned, you know, and this is the beauty of a guru. He's not going to explain everything. He's just going to say the thing, and then you're stuck with it. So I really could chewing on that for a while. I said, drop that. That's the reason we're on this path. That's the whole, you know, at least in my case. And so after a couple of months of chewing on it, you know, because somehow at least my relationship with Guruji is not to go back and say, what did you mean by that, and why did you say that? So as I kind of was stuck with it and chewing on it, then it hit me at some point. I said, oh, that's not it. An experience of the present moment, an experience of light, Advaita, and all that stuff is, and it's not truth anymore, because you said, oh, now I've had the experience. It's no longer describing Advaita. It's now, right, become just an experience. So it's this very little fine distinction, but it's kind of everything, because everyone, I think many people have that, where they say, oh, I'm in the moment, and then they go, oh, it's gone. You know, I'm in love, I'm experiencing love. Whoops, and then you're the next thing done. So it's a little delicate, you know, to describe, but I would say, coming back to the earlier point, which is that's what remains as the impressions quiet down, you know, and what are you left with? You're left with just the consciousness. You know, there's no other, you know, activity. Anyway, see, that's my best attempt. What else?
So we have a question come up.
Okay.
Hi, Philip. Could you please
Hi.
explain a bit more about what you mean by impressions?
Okay. What I mean by impressions, for instance, I am an advanced course teacher. or I'm close to the Guru, or I am, just say this is in my own life. This becomes, oh, I had the great experience. I go back to India, and I really hadn't spent much time there since 1995. And at that time, I was like running the ashram. Uh-oh, low battery, yikes. I just got a low battery warning. I hope it holds out because I don't have my charger. So I get back to the ashram, and I'm holding on to this idea in my mind. Oh, I am somebody. I am, I made whatever. I did X, Y, Z, and allowed part of this to happen, and da 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 da. And what does it do? It doesn't allow me to just be in the ashram. It becomes a limitation to being right there in front of Guruji, or happy, or X, Y, and Z. So it's anything as small as, oh, I took a left turn and I should have taken a right turn. Oh, that was stupid. Why did I do that? Da da da. I shouldn't do that again. It's pretty much anything that your mind gets caught up in, and starts to say, I am that. It could be a positive thing, like I'm a doctor, or I'm a teacher, or I'm, etc. To I made a mistake, I did that. So, it's, if you really watch anyone and sit there and talk about what they're doing or not doing, or how they interact with the world, it's all part of this network of impressions that are, happening every moment. And you could see it in the concrete things like, oh, that person, wow, they don't want to get up in front of people and speak. What happened? Oh, at some point in their lives they got humiliated, or they didn't do a good job in their own opinion, and then they feel, oh, nervous, what if I do that and it doesn't work, so those kind of things are concrete and identifiable, but it can be even smaller moments, so it's really fairly elaborate, and almost looks odd to say that we could exist without those things, but it turns out that you do. And you've also experienced it. People experience what they would call freedom, or some moments where they, don't feel bogged down by any of those things. And that's also, they've been at rest. Those impressions come to rest. So I don't know. Those are the examples I can think of.
Thank you, Philip. We have one more question that just came up.
Okay.
Would you say that being in witness consciousness, irrespective of the behavior / action, example, like you mentioned, stealing, flirting, or so-called bad actions, be called as enlightenment?
Right. Well, one thing I said is that it's not based on the actions. Guruji said, typically the enlightened set an example, so they don't sit and do any kind of actions that set an example that are going to lead people in the wrong direction, all that stuff. So it's not a common thing, but it also means that it's not a defining thing. So this idea of being in a witness state is sometimes, I've seen people delineate where they'll say, okay, when there are 4 states of consciousness, 3 states of consciousness: waking, dreaming, sleeping, and then you have the state of pure consciousness, turiya, samadhi, whatever you call it. That would be a 4th state of consciousness. And then when the 4th state and the other 3 combine, then you have this witness state of consciousness. In TM, they would call it cosmic consciousness. And then you start to perceive subtle levels of creation. They call it God consciousness. And then they'd say, when you see everything as the self, then it's unity consciousness. So you see that breaking down, but I don't think it's a linear, by my observation, it's not a linear process. Oh, you get to this, and then you get to that, and then this happens. All of those appear to people. Why do these people jump off a bridge with bungee cords stretched to their legs? Because at some moment, they're witnessing the whole thing. They're like, oh my God, this is like, I am not this body, or they get into that present moment experience. So that's why I'm just distinguishing. You could be in an experience of witnessing state, even for months and years, but there still may be impressions in the mind, and that's where you see someone holding a seed and at some point getting thrown off the seat because something happened, some behavior. And really it means from the average perspective, you can't really know. I think only the enlightened know. Like the guru can say, okay, this person's enlightened or this person's not. And I would ask him, we'd be traveling in India, there would be someone there. We went to the Sringeri, which is the first seat of Adi Shankara. And at least from what I knew from my TM days is that the Shankaracharya seats were for the enlightened. The enlightened person would take that seat of one of the different. There were 4 main ones, and I think then this first one. So we went there. I went there with Guruji in the early days. Must have been 92 or something. And this particular Shankaracharya didn't even meet Guruji. He was somehow busy, and Guruji was curious. I said, oh, and he said he doesn't have the merits to meet me, And in those days, Guruji was completely unknown to anyone, as in terms of. And I said, is he enlightened? And he said he's a scholar, he's very good. He somehow praised him, but he didn't give like a direct answer, like he's enlightened. So, but other people, like I heard him say, oh, Osho was enlightened, and some lady in Bombay who blah blah blah. So he would sometimes define someone in that context, and if someone may not be, but they're holding a seat, he would say, oh, they're very good, they do a lot of seva, different things. Anyway, I hope I don't lead anyone in the wrong direction here, but if anything, I'd say, you spark your curiosity. What the heck do you mean? And many people you'll find they'll say, who cares about enlightenment? This is silly. And by the definition I'm saying, it will sound very odd. Like, well, how could someone exist if they don't identify with something? I would be just some blob, sitting there. But it's not like that. It's not like that at all. Everything continues. That saying is there: before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Everything remains, but that existence itself. Matrix captured it very well for some weird reason. That movie, The Matrix, And he's sitting there, and he suddenly realizes, oh, this is all illusion. It's not exactly what you see, and then he moves with it completely different. So that was an interesting kind of representation. Anyway, okay, what else?
Philip, you're one of the most amazing teachers in Art of Living, and many people, including myself, wait for your silence courses to be around you, hear all your stories. What is the secret to your charm? Are you enlightened?
No, you can't ask such a question. There could be let it be angels hanging around, Yeah, I have no aversion to praise, so thank you very much. No, literally, I'm just someone on the path. I just from early on, I think I learned to meditate. I was 13, had very deep experience with the meditation. A little later in that year, separate from the meditation, had particular experience that was this realization, oh, this entire universe and myself are one. It just sounds like, what? And that was it. From then on, I was like, oh, how do I move in that direction? Because it was literally a moment. But it's like realizing, oh, I am king of this country, but I just happen to be lost in some random forest somewhere. What would you do? You'd say, oh, how do I get back to that thing? This is where I reside, but I happen to be over in left field somewhere. So that became, then you become like seeker. You're seeking the reuniting, with that truth that it's undeniable, And so I think what, at least in my personal experience, happens is, look, anything that anyone wants to do, they'll take the direction. Someone says, I want to make a lot of money. what will you do? You'll find, oh, if I do this, X, Y, and Z, then I move in that direction. If I associate it with these people, I move in that direction. If this thing happens and that, if I wear these clothes and suit and drive that car, then, So any pursuit becomes very concrete. We follow a set of parameters that we ourselves discover, for that. So in my case, literally early on, I would just I'd pick up some book, Tao of Physics or Be Here Now or something, was floating around. And I'd say, oh, they're describing this, okay. And then you'd find some association. Then I run into my cousin who taught me meditation. And then I said, oh, this experience. He said, yeah, well, how will you move in that direction? I said, I don't know. I'll just, go. And he said, well, that's why they had, in the ancient times created the meditation. So it cultures the mind, to move in that direction. So I said, okay, that makes sense. And so from then on, I say, oh, I'm at 10% battery. Oh, that's good for you guys because I won't go over. 10% battery on my phone. Anyway, so that kept leading things down the line. Oh, if I eat this food, that brings my consciousness more clear. If you're hanging out with a certain batch of people and you're realizing, it's not a judgment like, oh, they're good, this is bad, that's good. But you say, oh, this is not, brings me in the direction. Okay. So this process has been going on for years. It's just like a drug addict, how they're like looking into where do I find that thing? How can I get closer? So you keep finding their little moments, and then I went to Maharishi's University because I realized, oh, meditating like what we call Padmasadhana has a big effect. I did that, blah blah. By the time I meet Gurji, I can see he's clearly living in that state, and I'm like, what more can I do? So I never asked him personally, but that led to that conversation I had. Then I had that experience and blah, blah. So he literally, his instruction to me was do seva, be only in the knowledge, do seva, teach, And I'm like, what the heck? I'm not interested in teaching, blah, blah. But that was the path, and then that brings up X, Y, and Z. So anyway, coming back to your question, teaching and, what happens with me. So if I'm sitting there and teaching the course and someone asks a question or all that, it's coming into this giant database of experience, observation, something that's come up in my own experience, blah, 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 and then sharing it. And then I think the other thing that happens, when teaching is you just feel you're also the student. So you don't feel a separation. I think that brings a lot of connection, when anyone's on the course, also from my own experience. And I think that's a quality that I also find in Gurji, is that you don't feel like he's sitting there like, oh, I'm enlightened and you're not, and I'm going to lift you up into some higher state. He's just looking at you as we're together, And so all those kind of pursuits and experiences, they make the teaching process very lively for me also, because it's each moment, I must have sat on, every week I'm doing a silence course, so it's not an old experience, the moment you sit there and you look into hollow and empty, you watch the mind, how it jumps onto something that feels good or doesn't feel good, and why you then say, oh, now I feel good or don't feel good, and then what's the difference between my mind and the consciousness and thoughts, and am I my thoughts, etc. So that whole process gets interlinked, and then everyone's going, they're all on the same path, so everyone's happy, because like, oh my God, yes, they're also in the same boat, looking deeper into it. So that's what I can observe, from the years of teaching and then being on the path. It becomes like camaraderie, like, wow, yeah, then what? And then, you could see, oh, someone's struggling with this thought. They're stuck. Why am I having this thought? Or why can I not feel better? And it's like, so what? What's feeling better going to do for you? I know this upends our whole happiness theme, But it's so fascinating. And you can be happy and your mind could be unhappy. Like the two can coexist. So you start to see that, and that becomes freedom. That becomes this whole idea of Vivek, discrimination, and it's discrimination between what's changing, what's non-changing. And then you get to dispassion, right? Vairagya comes up and you say, okay, so all this is changing. Why am I making a big deal about it? You know, you'll see Guruji will do that. The death process is there, of course. So you say, if you have 1 week to live, if you have 3 days to live. So what if you have 1 week, 3 days, 5 years, 10 years? It's all a limited, changing phenomenon. And so there, how can you get so bothered, you know, like that thing? So that that process, you know, and as if you dip into it, then you can also share it with people, you know. Just by, the Guruji does it all the time. He looks, you come with all your problems, and you sit there with Guruji, and then the moment he looks at you, it's like, you're like, so what? Like, why did I care about all those things? It doesn't even matter. So some bigger perspective dawns. Why? Because he's also in that. He's in that big perspective. So anytime you dip into something beyond the thinking mind, beyond your own limited notion, oh, I'm this, I'm good, I'm not good, in a sort of an expanded state, which is really not abstract. It's everyone experiences that when they're happy, when they're in love, when they're in creativity. So you share that. I mean, that's the whole principle of Guruji and Seva and all that stuff. It's not so much, oh, I held someone across the street or I did that. But your moment of living in a state where your mind is free, it gets shared, you know, and it affects, you know, the people around you in such a way, you know, just someone seeing you smile at a situation where anyone else would be in frowning state, something wakes up in them, you know. For us to all watch Guruji when he's under so much pressure of time and people and, you know, responsibilities, and he's still just quietly sitting there in peace and smiling, it dawns on you, it's like, wow, how is that, you know, that's possible. One could also live in that, you know, state. Blah, blah, blah.
Are we going to get that if we come to Boone this summer, Philip? Are we going to achieve that if we spend time with you and Guruji in Boone, North Carolina?
Well, here's the thing. It's impossible not to miss. You know, you just got to go. There's not even a question. Here's the danger of saying what you're going to achieve. I would like to put it in a different perspective. You come around the Guru, and it's not a question of achievement. Okay, Guru, they claim Buddha got enlightened, and someone asked Buddha, you got enlightened, what did you gain? He said, nothing. I just lost everything. So don't think of adding anything, but think of, oh, I'm going to be in that environment, and what's the emphasis? The whole idea is what you call satsang, right? Company of the truth. Company of what is. That is what happens in any satsang, any sadhana. But when you come to Guru Purnima, it was on the other call, I said that's like, what is the Olympics to an athlete? The athlete, that's the pinnacle, you know, of the whole notion of sports, right, is the Olympics, and the final, you know, moments, and that, you know, that most high refinement of that thing. So when you talk about a spiritual path and your practice and satsang, what is Guru Purnima? It's like once a year, every year. We don't even have to wait 4 years. It's like every year you get to go, and you're like in that pinnacle of the whole, you know, that whole process. In every direction, you know, celebration, sadhana, silence, presence of Guru. So for anyone on the path, it's just like,
Oh, he was about to say the most important thing, and he left us with a cliffhanger. It's like being at the Olympics for a spiritual seeker. I think that's what he was about to say.
We'll have to go to Boone to find out what he was saying.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh my God, my mind is totally blown. Does somebody else feel like that too?
I hope this call has not created an impression in your mind, though. Or you can realize you're free from the impression, because you are not the impression. You're the witness of it.
So you heard the man. It's like the Olympics to an athlete is what Guru Purnima is to a seeker. So this time around, we have so many different programs that are offered with Guruji. It is such a blessing to be there, to be part of the whole celebration. It is beautiful. So do come join all of us, Philip Fraser, and many, many, many more seekers on the path in this celebration.
July 8th. There's still some Yes Plus scholarships available. If you are a Yes Plus student and you really want to come, there's still some availability of those. Just email us. If you would like to still come July 8th to 13th and you're still thinking about it. But those will be gone in the next day and a half or so. The deadline will be over. So if you haven't gotten on it, you have to jump on it fast.
And we hope to see you guys there. We'll all be there, Annalise, Nikhil, myself, Philip, and many, many more. So do come, hang out with us. And we have 2 special sessions with Guruji. Right, Annalise, you want to talk about that?
Yeah. Actually, every year we ask Guruji if he'll meet with the Yes Plus group separately, and he did. 1 or 2 years he met with us separately. It was only about 100 of us, which was beautiful. Like, we had a whole hour of his time, and we got to ask our own questions, and he spent a lot of intimate time talking and answering questions and giving knowledge. It was so beautiful. And then last year he didn't meet with the Yes Plus group, so we thought, oh, maybe that time is over. He's not going to do it anymore. We'll be in with a whole large group of 1,000 or 2,000 people. So this year he was asked, will he meet with the Yes Plus group? And he said, oh, why don't I meet with them twice? We were like, twice? That's awesome. So there's going to be 2 sessions with him with just the Yes Plus group, which will probably be a much smaller group than the main group. So we'll get some really intimate time with him to spend and ask questions and interact. So that's really a privilege and an honor and something really special. He doesn't always do that. So we are very lucky. It's a great time to come there.
So if you weren't happy or proud to be a Yes Plus, you are going to want to be on this part. Because the most amazing opportunity, I was there in 2010 when Guruji actually had those sessions, and I got to ask a question direct to him, which was amazing, and he gave such a pinpointed answer to me, which was completely not what I was asking, but what I needed at that time. So I would highly recommend that you find your questions that you want to ask, sign up, and come spend that time with us, with him, and ask your question.
If you have any questions or need help, just email us. I think you guys all have our emails.
Annalise.richmond@artofliving.org. That's Annalise.
Annalise@artofliving.org.
Oh, Annalise@artofliving.org.
The enlightened ones get just their first name at artofliving.org.
Oh. And drone. What's drones?
Mine is a little bit longer. Let's just keep it Annalise. Otherwise, people will be writing my name for the next 20 minutes.
Okay, thanks everybody for joining.
Thank you guys, and
Awesome.
we will see you in Boone.
Jai Gurudev!
Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev!